Today on The Real Story, ahead of Juneteenth, marking the emancipation of enslaved people in America, we're talking to the president of Connecticut's NAACP about the progress made since then and the plenty still to be done. Plus, how can you confront hate in your communities? But first, Representative Bobby Gibson is here to talk about the legislative session. As leader in the House and of the Black and Puerto Rican caucus, he's an advocate for policy that uplifts the Black community. So what were the wins and what didn't make it out of the session? From gun violence to police reform to classrooms, we're talking about it all. Good morning, and thanks for joining us on The Real Story. I'm Emma Wolforst, and here with me now, State Representative Bobby Gibson. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Emma.
Of course. So congratulations on another legislative session wrapping up. You know, we'll get to talking about this session in just a little bit, but last session, you very passionately testified to get Juneteenth recognized as a state holiday here in Connecticut. So with that being tomorrow, what does Juneteenth mean to you?
Thank you for that question. It is something that we all as Americans need to identify with and understand. The fact that slavery was one of the worst atrocities that happened in our country. This country was built on slavery, and the fact that after slavery was ended, there were still slaves in Galveston, Texas that were still enslaved, and then they had to be released. I think it was maybe 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed. We need to understand that history. We need to understand that that is part of American history, that is part of Black history, which is interwoven into the fabric of our nation, of our history. So, you know, you have to think about what's happening in our country today, for example. So like in states like Florida, who are taking Black history out of the curriculum, there's Amanda Gorman, who's one of the most eloquent poets around, who spoke at the presidential inauguration, having her books taken out of classrooms. These small episodes of taking away our history is threatening the greater picture of what our history is all about. So we have to recognize and remember things like Juneteenth, because it's a chance that some of those things can come back. And again, it's part of our country, it's part of our history as Americans.
Absolutely. I know you and other colleagues have said and shown in the chambers that you want to honor Black history by creating policies that support Black progress. This past session, what do you think were some of the wins for that?
Some of the wins. So we were able to pass early voting, which is very important. In our state, and I know in my district in particular, the age of our citizens are becoming older and older. And with technology and the way we're advancing, why not have early voting? Why not give our citizens the best opportunity they can to vote for the candidate they think that will support them, as well as absentee ballots, expanding that so that it's not only during the pandemic. It worked well when we had to do it the past couple of years because of COVID-19. Let's keep those things in play. Let's give our citizens the best opportunity they can to express themselves, to vote, to support the person that they want elected. And not to mention, you know, in today's our families, everyone's busy. So giving our people a chance to really express themselves at the polls is important.
I know another win was some of the gun violence legislation passed this session, really expounding upon that and trying to close some more loopholes. That was a big priority for the governor as well. So speaking from your conversations and experiences with your constituents, how needed do you feel legislation addressing gun violence was this past session, and what sort of difference do you hope it makes in communities?
And so, you know, the people that I speak to, my colleagues, you know, we're not calling for the elimination of citizens having the right to carry arms. But what we want to do is make sure that people who are responsible, people who have been trained, people who have a license are carrying those arms, and keep them out of the hands of the bad actors. Keep them out of the hands of kids. Here in the city of Hartford, we have some of the highest gun violence rates around. And the summer's coming, and it's inevitable as things warm up, you're going to have more and more shootings. Me being an educator working in a school, I have to think every day about protecting my students, and if something was to happen, I have a daughter who attends Howard University. The same thing. So it's important that we look at gun control. Again, not taking guns away from the good guys, but taking away from the bad guys.
And the CDC has said Black Americans are 12 times more likely than white Americans to die in shootings. How important was it to you and the Black and Puerto Rican caucus to focus on that violence prevention this session?
Well, things like gun prevention and violence, juvenile justice, Representative Tony Walker from New Haven has been pushing that for the longest. Is to the utmost importance. It's one of the things as far as maybe housing or education ranks up there as far as being a member of the Black and Puerto Rican caucus, because most of the communities that we represent are urban areas, and it affects us more than some of our other constituents. So it's outstanding that we were able to take a move on it, but there's still work to be done. And
in your opinion, what more work needs to be done there?
So, for example, work on ghost guns, work on these high magazine clips. We have some of the best police officers, police departments in the country. We have a military. Why is it that we need to have a citizen, a regular citizen, needs to carry an assault rifle or a weapon that can cause mass destruction? It's not needed.
And you mentioned police. I know when it comes to the Black community, a lot of people hesitate to work with and trust police for obvious reasons. And so talk to me about some of the police reform you've seen work its way through the Capitol during your time there, and any changes coming out of this session. I know you mentioned juvenile justice as well. We've seen some legislation this past year.
Well, we, as a member of the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus and the legislature, we support the police 100,000%. Some of the reforms that have come through, I think, will give the police officers a chance to really do their jobs and not worry about being accused of something that's incorrect. For example, the wearing of body cameras is something that not only will help us understand what's going on, but protects the police officer as well. So any reforms that we can do to help them do their job and do a better job at it, we're in support.
So you mentioned some other priorities like education and housing. When it comes to housing, we saw tenants, homeowners, people looking to buy homes, calling for more accessibility and affordability this year. The legislature had a huge bill full of potential solutions, but a lot of them were gutted as it moved through the legislature. What do you think, if anything, was accomplished when it comes to housing here in Connecticut? And do you think there's anything that needs to be maybe reprioritized next session?
Our housing chair, Representative Manny Sanchez, did an outstanding job this year. It was his first time chairing the committee. And there was a lot of issues that were touched upon, but we still have to get work done as far as helping tenants to pay their rents, rent control, making sure that our citizens can stay in their houses and live a decent life, because rents are going up. So we need more affordable housing. Our landlords, they need to be able to know that we are supporting them as well, because a lot of people are still recovering. This is 2023, and we think that we're out of the pandemic, but financially, a lot of people are still suffering from the effects of that pandemic. So we still have work to do.
And I know you mentioned being an educator before you were a politician, you were a teacher. So since your start in the legislature, Connecticut has required, developed, and now started actually implementing Black and Latino studies courses in schools here. As an educator, what did it mean for students of all races to have this sort of access to classes and curriculum like this?
I'm so proud, and thank you for asking me that question. Actually, the Black African American, Puerto Rican, Latino Studies curriculum, which is the only curriculum in the nation. Connecticut should be very proud that we passed this, to have this curriculum that we're teaching our schools, teaching our kids in schools. And I have to also say that it originated in Bloomfield, Connecticut. My superintendent, Dr. James Thompson, we got together with Don Harris, who's the head of our Board of Education, and Mr. Ben Foster, who's a doctor himself. We came up with the concept of this curriculum. And it's important because, again, as I was alluding to before, this country, our country, was developed and was made by slavery. If it wasn't for slavery, this country would not be in effect. And the benefits that our country has accumulated from blacks and Latinos from the time that they've left Africa through the Middle Passage, getting through slavery, and now till today is tremendous. And so, we need to be able to understand that, to be able to respect it. And what it is? It's about understanding one another. If you don't understand someone, you have that fear of them. And if you fear them, that's when we have a lot of hatred and have a lot of racism in our country. So it's not just for Latino students, it's not just for black students, it's for white students, it's for everyone, so that they can come together and understand each other's background and culture. And I was so engulfed in emotion the night that we passed it on the House, because in the same building, the Capitol building that we passed that law, that building was built by the hands of slaves and the children of slaves. So it's something that is tremendous, and the state of Connecticut should feel proud.
Really impactful for you in education. Always important, but especially ahead of Juneteenth. So unfortunately, that's all our time, but I really appreciate you being here and speaking with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, there's still more to get to on Real Story coming up. Our conversation this morning with the president of Connecticut's NAACP chapter, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, advocates for the black community carrying the civil rights torch. So while we celebrate Juneteenth and emancipation, we're breaking down the justice that still hasn't come to fruition, from policy to how everyday people can stand up to hate. Scott Isdale is joining us to delve deeper. Stay with us.